Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jonathan Weygant stated this: "It was buried in the side of a cliff. When I first saw it, I was scared. It was very strange. I think the creatures calmed me. It was unsettling. I think they were trying to communicate with me, I guess telepathically. It is really weird, and I don't believe in any of that stuff. Immediately after this, I was arrested. I thought they were going to kill me. He was saying, 'Are you a patriot? Do you like the Constitution?' I said, 'Yeah.' He replied, 'You have to sign these papers. You never saw this. I don't exist. And if you tell anybody, you'll just come up missing.'"
Jackie Gleason will always be remembered as one of America's greatest comedy talents. Born in Brooklyn, New York City, Gleason was a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks, which built his unyielding character and fortitude. Gleason became a workaholic and perfectionist. This passion also extended into his personal life. Fascinated by flying saucers and the unexplained, Gleason created one of the world's greatest parapsychological libraries. The bulk of it resides today at the University of Miami Library. Privately, Gleason was an avid UFO researcher, and the reason for this is astonishing. Gleason had a personal relationship with Richard Nixon, and in one conversation with the president, Gleason asked if there was anything Nixon could tell him about UFOs. Were they real? Were there really alien spacecraft? Nixon reportedly responded, "Well, Jackie, if you could arrange to arrive at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa sometime over the next few days, I'll show you some things that may answer some of your questions." Gleason arrived at the base 2 days later and was escorted to a covert storage facility. Once inside, he passed through several levels of security checkpoints. Finally, Gleason was taken into a large space where unusual debris was scattered across the floor. Suddenly, a light beam struck the center of the room. Gleason was astonished to see what appeared to be a portion of a damaged flying disc floating a few feet above the floor. Gleason was spellbound by what he was seeing, but the surprises didn't end there. A few moments later, Gleason was escorted to another room. In this room were 3 containers with glass windows for viewing. Within the containers were the occupants of the crashed saucer. The officer confided to Gleason that, quote, "The beings were about 4 to 5 feet tall. 2 of the bodies were badly damaged, but 1 was in very good shape." As Gleason gazed upon the extraterrestrial corpse, the officer added, "This one died later." Gleason studied the being's large oval eyes, grayish skin, and the appearance of being male. Gleason asked the officer if all of the beings were male, to which the officer replied, "Your guess is as good as ours."
At 7 a.m. on the 30th of June in 1908, near the lower Tunguska River in Siberia, a large explosion occurred. The explosion was so massive that it caused damage 400 miles away and was heard even further. For several nights all over northern Europe, the sky glowed enough to light the streets of London. At first, it was assumed that a massive meteorite had collided with the Earth. However, after the Second World War and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, photos of the cities were compared with aerial photos of the Tunguska blast, and they were stunningly similar. As a result of this, various scientists speculated that a nuclear explosion had taken place over the area, and because no nation possessed a nuclear device at that time, the logical conclusion was that it was from an exploded alien nuclear-powered craft. Of all the top UFO encounters, one would be remiss without mentioning Roswell, New Mexico. In July 1947, something happened northwest of Roswell during a severe thunderstorm. Was it a flying saucer? Was it a weather balloon? What happened? The answer is nothing for many years, until leading UFO researcher Stanton Friedman came across the story in the early 1980s and began to search for information and witnesses. That research brought him to Roswell, looking for the public information officer who had been at Roswell Army Airfield in 1947. That officer was Lieutenant Walter Haut. He still lived in Roswell and remembered the press release and the orders from his commanding officer. Friedman's investigation also led to many others, both military and private, who had information to add to the Roswell incident story. Stepping into the picture very strongly in the late 1980s were Don Schmitt and Kevin Randall and Tom Carey. Since then, Schmitt and Carey have dedicated their research to Roswell. The debris recovered by Ranger W. Mac Brazel was gathered by the military from the Roswell Army Airfield under the direction of Base Intelligence Officer Major Jesse Marcel. On July 8, 1947, Public Information Officer Lieutenant Walter Haut issued a press release under the orders from Base Commander Colonel William Blanchard, which said basically that we have in our possession a flying saucer. The next day, another press release was issued, this time from General Roger Ramey, stating it was just a weather balloon. That was the start of the best known and well documented UFO cover-up. Once it became public, the event known as the Roswell incident, the crash of an alleged flying saucer, the recovery of debris and bodies, and the ensuing cover-up by the military, was of such magnitude and so shrouded in mystery that 70 years later, there are still more questions than answers. Books have been written and TV documentaries have been filmed. Witnesses have come forward. Skeptics have issued rebuttals to the incident, and the debate continues. The tiny town of Roswell flourishes due to the incident to this day. It is a mecca for UFO enthusiasts and truth seekers. Some say the government still has the saucer and aliens hidden away in some bunker somewhere. Deathbed confessions continue to get reported by people who were there, and Roswell has a firm place in the top UFO encounters. The most damning evidence that the United States was actively participating in a government cover-up comes from Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso. Corso was the chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk in Army Research and Development, working under Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau. And he was on the staff of President Eisenhower's National Security Council for 4 years between 1953 and 1957. In his book, The Day After Roswell, Corso claims that technology gleaned from the Roswell crash helped kickstart technological advancements in accelerated particle beam devices, fiber optics, lasers, integrated circuit chips, and Kevlar material. Corso's duties at the Pentagon required him to oversee the storage of physical evidence and files on the Roswell crash, and to leak this material to corporations for the advancement of our technology. Corso also claimed the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, was meant to achieve the destructive capacity of electronic guidance systems in incoming enemy warheads, as well as disabling enemy spacecraft, including those of extraterrestrial origin.
The Kecksburg UFO incident occurred on December 9, 1965, at Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. A large, brilliant fireball was seen by thousands in at least 6 states and Ontario, Canada. It streaked over the Detroit, Michigan, Windsor, Ontario area, reportedly dropped metal debris over Michigan and northern Ohio, and caused sonic booms in western Pennsylvania. Eyewitnesses in the small village of Kecksburg, about 30 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, claimed something crashed in the woods there.
On April 12, 1941, in Cape Girardeau, the Reverend William Huffman was called to what he thought was a plane crash to read the last rites of the passengers. A car arrived at his house, and they drove about 18 miles or so outside of Cape Girardeau, closer to the Chaffee area. When they showed up on the scene, it was not a plane crash. It was, allegedly, a flying saucer. Classic silver round disc that had crashed, that had started a fire. There were police and firemen there to take care of the scene, put out the fire on a local farmer's field. The Reverend arrived and saw a classic flying disc with part of the side ripped open and 2 alien bodies that were dead and one that may have been dying. It may have been alive, but couldn't breathe. The Reverend looked inside the flying saucer and saw wires and components of some sort of alien design. There were strange hieroglyphics and bizarre knobs and dials. The Reverend knew that he couldn't give the last rites. About that time, the Army Corps arrived from Sykeston Field and cordoned off the area and swore everybody to secrecy, then tried to confiscate all cameras. There were pictures allegedly taken that night of men holding one of the alien bodies, and somewhere out there, those pictures exist. The story came through Charlotte Mann, who was the Reverend's granddaughter, who began to give accounts of the story in the late 70s. It was a document of a deathbed confession by the Reverend himself. Reverend Mann told the story to his granddaughter, and she had seen some of the pictures. To this day, no one knows where the photos are now, but many families in the area remember the event. It could be the first UFO crash in North America, and certainly is one of the top UFO mysteries of all time. The Aztec, New Mexico UFO incident, sometimes known as the other Roswell, was a flying saucer crash alleged to have happened in 1948 in Aztec, New Mexico. The story was first published in 1949 by Arthur Frank Scully in his Variety magazine columns, and later in his 1950 book, behind the flying saucers. Beginning in the 1970s, some ufologists resurrected the story in books claiming the purported crash was real. In 2013, an FBI memo claimed by some ufologists to substantiate the crash story was dismissed by the Bureau as a second or third-hand claim that we never investigated. According to Scully, in March 1948, an unidentified aerial craft containing 16 humanoid bodies was recovered by the military in New Mexico after making a controlled landing in Hart Canyon, 12 miles northeast of the city of Aztec. The craft was said to be 99 feet in diameter, the largest UFO to date. Scully named as his sources two men identified as Newton and Guevara, who reportedly told him the incident had been covered up and the military had taken the craft for secret research. Scully wrote that the crashed UFO, along with other flying saucers captured by the government, worked on magnetic principles. According to Scully, the inhabitants stocked concentrated food wafers and heavy water for drinking purposes, and every dimension of the craft was divisible by 9. In the late 70s, Arthur Leonard Stringfield purported that not only was the incident real, but that the craft involved was one of many captured and stored by the U.S. military. In later years, many alleged first-hand accounts of the Roswell crash contained the Aztec crash story, with some claiming the craft was made of a material impervious to all heat, while others claiming the craft was damaged by the crash. The supposed humanoid bodies were said to measure between 36 inches and 42 inches in height and weighed about 40 pounds. Ufologists claim that shortly after the craft was downed, the military cleared the area of evidence, including the bodies, subsequently taking it to Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Aztec UFO crash is certainly one of the top UFO encounters of all time.
Mexico has not escaped the world of UFO activity. In fact, almost every day there is a report of something. But in 1977, something amazing happened. In July, the town of Puebla witnessed several large falling UFOs crashing in the distance. The army was called out. Rumors of a UFO crash and a cover-up spread. Nearby in Yopla, the townsfolk also saw the same thing, and this time they reported seeing a craft explode into thousands of sparkling pieces. Mayors, teachers, policemen, everybody saw it. As many witnesses rushed to recover the debris, they discovered that the Americans had already beaten them to it in an unmarked helicopter. Many believe them to have been members of the U.S. Air Force Moondust and Blue Fly recovery teams, specialist units set up to speedily recover UFO technology. Some fragments were recovered before the team of so-called NASA scientists could stop them. They were analyzed and found to be an alloy unknown to humanity at that time. It was then discovered that another crash had happened at Tabasco and that 2 dead aliens had been recovered.
Although it has been said there is a single case in the Blue Book files in which alien creatures were reported that wasn't labeled as some sort of psychological program, there are several good cases hidden in there. Skeptics, disbelievers, and debunkers like to say that there is no evidence that alien creatures have visited the planet. They ignore, reject, or are unaware that the Blue Book files do contain examples of physical evidence that has been recovered. The best of those cases came from Socorro, New Mexico on April 24, 1964. Lonnie Zamora, then a police officer in Socorro, saw a landed object and two small humanoids standing near it. According to Project Blue Book, Zamora was chasing a speeder when he heard a loud roar and saw a flash of light in the southwestern sky. Fearing that a dynamite shed on the edge of town might have exploded, Zamora broke off the chase and headed in that direction. Captain Hector Quintanilla added more detail to the story as it was told by Zamora during the official investigation. Quintanilla later wrote, "It was off the road to the left in the Arroyo, and at the first glance it looked like a car turned over, but when he drove closer it appeared to be aluminum clay, not chrome, and oval shaped like a football. Zamora drove about 50 feet along the hill crest, radioing back to the sheriff's office.
1044, I'll be 106, checking a breakdown in the Arroyo." From this point, seated in the car, he could not see the object over the edge of the hill. As he stopped the car, he was still talking on the radio, and while he was getting out, he dropped his mic. He picked it up and put it back, and started down towards the object. As soon as I saw flame and heard roar, ran away from object but did turn head towards object. Object was in shape. It was smooth, no windows or doors. As roar started, I was still on the ground, running, bumped leg on car back fender area. Car facing southwest, fell by can, and glasses fell off. Kept running to north, with car between me and object. Rose to about level of car, about 20 to 25 feet. Took I guess about 6 seconds when object started to rise and glance back. It appeared about directly over the place where it rose from. I was still running. Then about 50 feet from car, I dug down, just over edge of hill. I stopped because I did not hear the roar. I was scared of the roar, and I had planned to continue running down the hill. I turned around toward the object and at the same time put my head toward ground, covering my face with my arms. When the roar stopped, heard a sharp tone whine, and the whine lasted maybe a second. Then there was complete silence about the object. That's when I lifted up my head and saw the object going away from me in a southwestern direction. It did not come any closer to me. It appeared to go in a straight line at the same height, possibly 10 to 15 feet from ground, and it cleared the dynamite shack by about 3 feet, shack about 8 feet high. Object was traveling west fast. It seemed to rise up and take off immediately across the country.
Quintanilla said, "I was determined to solve the case, and come hell or high water, I was going to find the vehicle or the stimulus. I decided that it was imperative for me to talk to the base commander at Holloman Air Force Base. I wanted to interview the base commander at length about special activities from his base. I needed help to pull this off, so I called Lieutenant Colonel Maston Jacks at SAFOI. I told him what I wanted to do, and he asks, 'Do you think it will do any good?' I replied, 'God damn it, Maston, if there is an answer to this case, it has to be in some hangar at Holloman.' He went to work with his position at the Pentagon, and the approval for his visit came through. Colonel Gehrman was the base commander during his visit. He was most cooperative and told me that I could go anywhere and visit any activity which interested me. I went from one end of the base to the other. I spent 4 days talking to everybody I could and spent almost a whole day with the downrange controllers at the White Sands Missile Range. I left Holloman dejected and convinced that the answer to Zamora's experience did not originate and terminate at this base. On my way back to Wright-Patterson, I hit upon an idea. Why not a lunar landing vehicle? I knew that some research had been done at Wright-Patterson, so as soon as I got back, I asked for some briefings. The briefings were extremely informative, but the lunar landers were not operational in April of 1964. I got the names of the companies that were doing research in this field, and I started writing letters. The companies were most cooperative, but their answers were all negative. I labeled the case unidentified, and the UFO buffs and hobby clubs had themselves a field day. According to them, there was proof that our beloved planet had been visited by an extraterrestrial vehicle. Although I labeled the case unidentified, I've never been satisfied with that classification. As early as the late 1800s, we have known about aliens, their craft, and perhaps even their purpose for coming to the Earth. Slowly over time, we have accumulated several craft, various technology, and even the bodies of occupants of UFOs, some apparently captured live and perhaps still living today. This may sound extraordinary, but there exists physical evidence of the truth to many of these claims. There exists today specially designed military units whose sole purpose is to arrive at a crash site early, contain the area, capture any living aliens, and gather up any dead aliens along with their technology. Then transport the craft and debris to secret installations far away from the prying eyes of American citizens. We may never know the full extent of this massive cover-up, much less be allowed to view this evidence. However, nothing can remain a secret forever. As more people come forward and expose the truth about UFO crashes and their containment, the day could come where someone blows the lid off these atrocities and the truth is revealed for all.